What's up, everyone? Mike back with you again on another episode of One and Done with Zeke. How's it going, Zeke?
Yo, it's been a minute.
It has been a while, yeah. I think both of us have just been kind of busy and stuff, but yeah, we definitely haven't forgotten about you guys, and we're excited to do another episode. Um, Thought maybe, given the Heritage Auction signature block ending, we could kind of look at that, talk about some cards, talk about some games, some really interesting prices, and
Oh yeah.
yeah.
I'm kind of excited to talk about it because I completely missed out on the whole weekend of the block. So everything you're gonna tell me is gonna be like news to me. But I already know that a lot of people on Facebook and some other were just freaking out of what happened over the weekend. Fortunately, I don't know any numbers, so I'm pretty excited to hear what happened this past weekend, and really get a good idea of where we are at the market now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, let's do this. We could start with a big one. This was one of the main headliners, the first edition base booster box, and apparently, from what I understand, the final price, buyer's premium included, of course, since it's heritage, actually broke the record for the largest public sale, supposedly. So yeah. So you want to take any kind of guess on what it ended at, or you want me to just tell you?
So, the Logan Paul box that I know of on Heritage sold for right around a quarter, I believe, right around there.
Yeah.
So if it broke the record, my guess it would have to be high 200K, low 300K before buyer's premium. So somewhere around there.
It looks like since it's sold, it tells you only the total price. It doesn't actually break down with or without buyer's premium, but the total price out the door, minus I guess taxes, is 360K.
Jesus.
Yeah. And one thing that's really interesting about this is that the person who actually won actually came out public.
Oh.
They decided not to stay private, which is really interesting because normally you don't see that very often. But I guess because it's just such a big deal and had so much attention on it, I guess the buyer was comfortable to admit that it was them that won. So it ended up being actually the creator of Blowout Forums, so Blowout Cards.
Who's that? I'm not familiar.
So basically, Blowout Cards is one of the largest online. I don't know if they have a physical presence, but for sure online when it comes to sports cards. They're I guess you could kind of think of them as like a core TCG of sports cards.
Hmm.
They do dabble in Pokemon as well. Not sure if they do Magic, but I know they have a deep root in sports. They have a side, like a sister website, Blowout Forums, which is pretty much the number one go-to for anything sports related. I actually use it myself too to track sports cards data, or read about new players, or like if I'm looking for a card. Like it's pretty much the place for sports cards,
Hmm.
and it's huge. So what I understand from just reading around is that the creator is actually like a really avid collector himself, and has come out publicly with like want lists and like willing to pay a huge premium. I know like when the National Treasures released the Zion cards for his rookie year, he publicly came out and said, "I will give $500,000 to whoever pulls the one of one of his card." So like he's like really like after like the high end stuff, and he's really public about it. But I did not know that he was interested in this because it's not sports. So
Do
yeah,
do
I
you
was
do
kind
you,
of surprised.
do you feel that once you reach like the five-figure mark and up in collecting sports or Pokemon, that you eventually just cross over to the other, whether it be a small amount or equal amount, or you completely trade, like swap around? I feel like every Pokemon or sports cards collector, I should specify, once they own things that are past 10K, I feel like they have their hand in Pokemon, or the other way around. Like they have their hand in one over the other. And I think it's interesting that, because I do recall the Zion. I forgot it was him, but I remember we talked about it because I think the one of 25 was like selling for almost 100,000. I think it ended like at 90 something thousand. I remember you and I were watching that auction on eBay, and you and I were thinking like maybe half a million. Because at first I was like, oh, half a million's a lot for somebody who like hasn't even proven himself. And then I saw that the one of 25, or we saw that the one of 25 sold for like just under 100K. And I'm like, maybe 500K is conservative more than
Actually, that wasn't
optimistic.
even one of 25. That was the one of 99. So it was like
Oh my
the
gosh.
base rookie, and the one of one is basically the variant of that, but it's unique because the patch that they use is like the logo of the NBA. So there's only one of that, and I'm kind of curious too of how far his reach goes into Pokemon because, like you said, when you get to a certain figure, you know, crossing over is not uncommon. I would actually say most major collectors that I know of seem to have their hands in multiple things. Like if you look at Scott, he's made it public that he owns stuff beyond Pokemon, even though
Oh
he's
yeah.
most famous
Oh,
for it. He definitely has hands in sports or video games. Even Gary, he's talked about owning music collections. So I
art.
wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, art. I wouldn't be surprised. At a certain point, you kind of want to go after multiple things, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it's you just kind of want to try new things, or you just kind of get bored of what you're doing, so you want to change it up. I really don't know what triggers that, but I guess when you're a collector, you just kind of start enjoying other kinds of collectibles and kind of add to your collection. And I think this guy, I'm blanking on his name, but I'm sure he's kind of in that boat where he's made so much off of sports. He's looking at other hobbies, and he's like, hey, look at Pokemon. 20 plus years, been around for a long time, super popular. A lot of the stuff's super hard to find now. Maybe I can go after it. And I guess that's when he decided to try and go after this. But 360,000, that's unbelievable. And I know you told me that there's been some kind of scare when it comes to collecting this now
So
because of some issues with previous sales.
right. So before this sale, this is the fourth big. From what I believe, this is the fourth. Because so Logan Paul kind of spooked everybody with paying about $250,000 for a booster box, and it kind of like there was already a Pokemon hype, like peaking, and then Logan Paul just kind of like gave it so much more gas to kind of keep going, and then uh, Pokerev as well has been getting into that hype, opening a lot of boxes of vintage stuff, and from what I understand, Logan Paul, um, Logan Paul bought another first edition booster. I don't recall what the amount was for, but I believe it was near 300K, and it ended up being fake. And then another one was recently Chris Camilo, I believe is his name. He spent according to what he was going to pay, was going to spend $375,000 on a first edition booster. So he had literally he like live streamed it all. He had a briefcase full of money and the booster box, and basically he's like, here's the money, but let me open the box to make sure it's legit, and then you can take the money. Sure enough, he opens the box, and the box is a resealed box that has mixed match cards, open packs, and so on. So, so and then Poker Rev, I believe, also got. I don't think he got scammed for a first edition booster, but I think he got scammed for another. I believe it was a Neo Genesis booster box. So there's been I mean, reboxing hasn't been a new thing. It's actually been a common thing for a long time, and even Dragon Ball recently there was a resealed booster box that came to light. So that's one thing, and then there are some custom cards people are making that while they haven't figured out the font and the font of the card and certain little details that I won't clarify into too much, but those for fun custom cards are starting to get really close to to being similar to like even the Dragon Ball secrets and SPRs. I've seen some Pokemon secrets that from custom cards that if you didn't know any better, you could get swindled. And now with hype, I think people like drama, so I think people obviously see that people are opening fake boxes or resealed boxes, and obviously the more attention goes to that because it's negative, and unfortunately negative sells better than positive. And I think now that I hear that the Heritage sold for a grand total of 360, and right before this another box semi public, sold for 375, and I almost feel like it only became public because it was fake to get attention from it more than it was anything else, because I feel like if it was legit it may have not gotten as much attention, um, or it wouldn't have been made as big. So it almost gives me a feeling that there might be a retrace now, and not so much a retrace because the hype is dying down, but I think with the so much recent exposure to now being gypped out of tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't know how legitimate Logan Paul buying the fake Illustrator was. I don't know if he knew it was fake and was just trying to, just again negative sales. And I don't know if he was just trying to hype up attention and drive it into it, or maybe it was fake and then it's just something that it becomes alarming because while there are many collectors that are super expertise on identifying resealing and all of that, it also becomes alarming to somebody who's diversifying, and it kind of scares them, if anything. But I don't see like a hard retrace. I just feel like it's gonna start to calm down because now people are gonna start getting scared. What I will say is that it won't retrace graded, because it's really hard to have a graded fake card. But I'm gonna say the word really hard with an asterisk. um, but I think it's interesting. To me, this is the sign that we've reached the peak. But others may disagree. But I think this is a sign that Pokemon has finally reached its hype peak, and I think it's going to start to stabilize. It's going to start to more logical decisions are going to start being made, and I think the market's going to start to settle instead of just this crazy trade. I mean, modern is ridiculously expensive right now. It blows my mind. This promo Pikachu from the Canadian Pokemon Center store, in literally a week, went from a $20 card. It's a free card you get for spending $20 at the Pokemon Center store online. It's just a free card, and and since its release, I've seen it climb from 20 to 30 to 50 to 70 to 140, and I believe I saw a completed sold listing yesterday for $199 for a Pikachu promo that just came out in a week ago.
That's demand for you, man. Demand sometimes is much stronger than rarity, and I think for something like that, it's just that's what you get, I guess, with the boxes too. I mean, it's really, really tough. I definitely think there is a sense of fear when it comes to these boosters, because you want to make sure that this money you're investing in it's something authentic. And the challenge is with booster boxes, it's not as easy to sometimes tell the difference as it is with cards. Cards, it's just so much harder to fake. I think that's kind of what it is with sealed boosters. A lot of the interior isn't exposed, right? Because it's a closed box, so it's easy to fake. So it does get kind of scary when you're putting in so much money, and then it just ends up not being real. So it's tough whether or not that's going to have an actual effect, like a ripple effect to other sales. I guess we'll just kind of see how it goes. But if I'm
oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I just think it makes people who are diversifying scared of sealed,
especially crossovers, because crossover collectors aren't as experienced, knowledgeable, familiar with the market. And first edition base normally is the first you know, first first thing that collectors go after when they're crossing over into Pokemon, right? Because it's the one that everyone knows, it's the most iconic. But when you're going against, a lot of these, other people that are trying to fake you, trying to scam you, it's really, really hard to navigate. And, Logan Paul, I don't know for how long he's been collecting or whatever, but it's possible that just his lack of experience might have, resulted in the fake. So,
It's it's definitely something where I want to see where it goes, but for my opinion, from the outside looking in, as somebody who has crossed over, you've crossed over. We've both have crossed over once. I wouldn't say. I believe that we crossed over before we hit the 10 the 5 figure mark, but when our collection itself was valued at over 5 figures, I feel like that's when we started crossing over after that. And as somebody who has crossovered and things like that, I'm I'm skeptical that people will still be blindly dropping money. I think now people are going to redirect their attention to smarter buys, and they're going to be making more educated decisions. So I believe there might come a point where somebody will have a first edition booster for sale, and it might sit for a little bit because buyers might be kind of cautious. Like it might merit an in-person transaction. I mean, you and I talked about this. I feel like we talked about it. I feel like once a card passes 5 figures, and it's like a U.S. sale, like I would eat what the average round trip flight cost is, $300 to $500 in the U.S. I would eat the flight cost and just Uber to a Subway, a McDonald's, and meet up with the buyer and just physically exchange a card. I mean, shipping the card is going to cost you almost just as much if you insure it. Once you pass 5 figures, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I remember what was the example that started this? It was at
was
the
it Charizard?
no, it was the Gold Star collection that we talked
Gold
about.
Star collection. Yeah.
Remember that Gold Star collection that you? I was like, I would have to physically pick it up. I wouldn't trust this in the mail.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, when you're paying $60K or receiving $60K, I feel like losing $500 to guarantee, delivery is definitely worth that premium.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but no. So what else happened on Heritage this weekend? Because I missed a lot. Like I know video games are on there.
Let's see. Well, there was a few other Pokemon boxes. The one that was really interesting was Skyridge because you don't see that one come up too often. There was also a jungle and a fossil, which tends to be more common. But the Skyridge ended at 60. Personally, for me, based on what the base first goes for, I actually thought the Skyridge went lower than what I was expecting. I actually expected it to hit the 6-figure mark, given how scarce the box actually is to find sealed these days, and the significance of it being the final set under WotC. But yeah, so 60K was for that one. Then kind of, Jungle Fossil you see more often, so not as special. And then some packs as well, but not really worth talking about. But yeah, games definitely had some headliners as well. So let's see if I can pull up some of the ones that I thought were kind of shocking based on, my current experience in gaming.
I heard a Mario Brothers broke a record again.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So
Oh.
first one is the World Championships Great Cart. So that one ended with buyer's premium at 52,000. So that was an interesting one. I think that was kind of what people were expecting, is that 40 to 50 range. So not too much of a shocker. But given its scarcity and significance, it's a pretty big game. So it's kind of cool to see one go on auction.
Do you remember which World Championship card was the one that was traded across for the Brady rookie card? Was that a gray card or was that a silver or gold card?
I don't remember.
Remember when Pat the NES Punk made that video?
No. I remember it coming out. I just don't remember if it was gold or gray. I think it might have been gold. but I'm not 100% sure on that.
I mean, if it was gold and this gray sold for 50 plus, 55, you said, right?
52,800.
52,000. So, I mean, I guess maybe over time they'll measure the same. I still think Pat was right that
The
the
interesting thing, and we'll get to this, is that there was a gray cart traded, I think it was a few weeks ago or a month ago, privately, for a perfect grade Pokemon Red on Game
I
Boy.
I remember that. Yes, that was a
And
semi-public trade.
yes,
Yeah.
and that one also was talked about as being a terrible trade because the gray cart is much rarer, right? There's less than four figures, so hundreds only in existence. Where with Pokemon Red, millions were produced, so there's more likely to be sealed copies out there than there are gray carts. And then also the Nintendo's history's significance of the gray cart. But yeah, so we'll get to that. But yeah, so that was an interesting one. Um, as far as I'm aware of, it's one of the few times I've ever seen a gray card go publicly, so it's kind of cool to see an actual data point now established for that one. Mario, of course, is another big one, as always. The original one on NES, later version of it sold for around 40K, kind of where I was expecting. It was a 9.6 grade, so a higher grade. Here's one that was mind-blowing. Mario 3 for Nintendo. There's two variants of it. There's one variant where the Bros word is on the left, basically overlapping his hand. If you can remember the logo for Super Mario 3, the raccoon one.
Yeah.
And then there's a variant where Bros is on the right of his hand.
Oh.
And the variant that has it on the left is considered first print. And then for whatever reason, Nintendo moved it to the other side in later prints. So it's like a first edition. Supposedly, not many of those exist sealed, from what the collector community says. But this one did, come to auction block, and for a 9.2 A+ grade, so it's definitely in the higher tier of grade, but not like a perfect or anything like that. 156,000.
Jesus.
Yeah, and we're talking about Mario 3, not even the original Mario, which for an earlier print, I think it was the last block or the block before, sold for 100,000, which kind of made more sense because it's an older game, harder to find in that variant. But for this one, the third Mario, which came out in 1990, and yes, it's a first print, but the grade's not even near perfect, and for it to be 156,000, I think that was the one that really a lot of people in the community were just like, wow, where did that come from? Like, the last left variant that showed up on Heritage was a 9.0, so only a 0.2 difference. And that ended in the July block, so we're talking about a couple blocks before, I think. You know how much that one went for?
I don't.
38,000. So either the 38,000 was a steal, or the person who was going at, well, normally, when it comes to these things, it takes two to get to that price, right?
Right.
So whoever was trying to go after this, or the two people that were trying to go after this, assuming it was just two people, either they didn't know the previous data, or they just didn't care and they just really, really wanted this copy. I don't know. Nobody knows because the winner hasn't come out publicly to say that they were the one that won it. But to put 156,000 on this game, I think for a lot of people, it just took everybody by surprise. I mean, yes, it's rare. Yes, it's the first print, but it's not even the original Mario. So that was the really, really big surprise, I think, for a lot of people in this auction.
So I believe there is I believe it was on Pawn Stars that there was a first print Wada sealed Mario.
Yeah.
And the dude was asking.
Technically second print, but yeah.
It's like a weird rare variant, right?
Yeah, so basically the original first two prints, if I recall, were test market prints. The first one being New York and the second one being LA, I think. And you can tell by the different kind of sticker that they had, because in the very, very, very first print runs, they actually didn't seal the games, which is funny because we're talking about how it's easy to fake seals now. But they didn't seal games back then. They just had a sticker that would close the top of it, and so you can tell the variant based on the sticker type. There's a gloss sticker and a matte sticker, I think, and the gloss I think was the one that he was trying to sell, but from what the experts are saying, that's the earliest known sealed copy, meaning that none survived from the very, very first test market in New York. So it's technically the second print, but it's
It's
the
it's
earliest
like
known copy
it's like it's almost
to
like
be
a
sealed.
negative. It's almost like a negative print. Like there's this is like -1 and -2 print runs because
Basically, yeah,
yeah,
it's like alpha and beta. It's like still testing it out before you go mainstream with it.
right.
And so he pretty much had the beta, and there's no known alpha seals to still exist, so they call it the earliest known sealed copy. But yeah, but that was the original, right?
And
At
that
least that has a little bit more, legs to it because it's the very, very first Mario. This isn't even the first or second; it's the third one. So just crazy.
the guy was asking 1.2 million. I believe he was asking $1 million from Pawn Stars, and I think Wada. And this is like last year or early this year that I recall watching this, and I think Wada estimated that it could go at auction for over half a mil. And this was almost a year ago, maybe even longer than that. So it really puts into perspective. Like I remember you and I freaked out. What was it like last month when a Mario Brothers 3? I think it was like a third or fourth print run hit almost 80k, 80 plus k. Remember
I think
that?
so. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was
Right.
something crazy. There's
It,
always that one game that just every block. There's that one game that just surprises everybody.
I,
So
I just don't understand the fascination with Mario's 3. Like to all the fans of Mario's 3, I respect it. I'm just fascinated because I'm a huge Mario fan, and there's a couple things out there that I'm super interested in, and Mario 3 is nowhere on that list. So, but again, it's not my childhood. Like, so I'm interested to wonder why that specific one is so highly desired. Mario 2, I could see being not as desired because Mario 2 isn't technically Mario 2. I don't know if you know the story, Mike, about Mario 2. Mario 2 is actually a reskin of a different game completely. Um,
no, I don't know this at
yeah,
all.
Mario Super Mario Brothers 2
Yeah.
was actually so on the Super Nintendo there was a Mario game called Super Mario All Stars where it had Mario Brothers 1, 2, and
Yep.
World,
And three.
and it had Lost Levels. Lost Levels was supposed to be the original Mario Brothers 2, but something happened in production. I don't know what caused it to change, but I believe the game was called Poke Hokey Panic, and it was a Japanese only game, and they reskinned the game and just changed the characters to be like Shy. It's actually what introduced Shy Guys. Actually, was that game what introduced Shy Guys, and Mario Brothers 2 is actually just a reskin game of a completely different game, which is why if you play Mario Brothers 2, it doesn't really like I don't know if you remember Mario Brothers 2 too much, where it's the one where you can pick the four characters. Peach can fly, Luigi can jump higher, Mario standard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just different, and that's kind of it feels very different from Mario Brothers 1, and it's because it's a completely different game. That just happens to be a platformer. That's why there's no Bowser, there's no Koopas, there's no Hammer Bros, there's no Spiked Koopas, there's none of that from the original Mario Brothers 1. There's no lava pits, there's no fireballs. It's really really interesting. There's no bullet bills. So that's why I could see why Mario Brothers 2 wouldn't be so high up there on people's lists. But I could see Super Mario All Stars on the Super Nintendo being really high up there because it does have Lost Levels, which is technically supposed to be the true successor to Mario Brothers 1, but it just kind of like never happened. So I'm really fascinated to hear and read comments on people's reasoning why Mario Brothers 3 is so highly sought after. I mean, technically you can call it the true number 2. You know what I mean?
One thing I would say is that it was the third best-selling game on the NES. So it could be one of those instances where popularity trumps scarcity. But to me, even then,
I
I don't
mean,
know, man. 156,000. It just feels like a huge amount of money, and most collectors felt the same. I think it was probably just an example of people really, really, really wanting this copy and willing to go as far as they could to get it, and one just had more that they're willing to spend on it than the other. But it was almost like an anomaly, at least in the current state of things, based on where the original Mario's at, which to me is probably always going to be king. But yeah, it just, I don't know, man. 156,000 just felt like a huge amount for this game, at
well,
least at present time.
I
So
well, you bring up it's the third best-selling NES game. I'm gonna take a shot in the dark and say that Mario One is the number one best-selling Mario game. It,
I know Tetris is up there. I don't know if Mario 1 is top 3. Let's see. Probably going to be something we don't expect.
it'll be something crazy.
No, Mario is 1, Duck Hunt is 2, and Mario Bros is 3.
So I think I know. I think I know why that is though, and it's kind of a sad. It's kind of like with Wii Sports.
Yeah, it was part of the original release, so it was kind of like,
With every console sale came a cartridge sale.
essentially, yes.
So that's
So
why.
it kind of wins by default, but that would imply then that Mario 3 was actually sought after because it didn't come with the console. So people actually wanted to go out and buy it. And that was the best non-game to come with the console. Actually, even more than Mario 2. So definitely the popularity is there, and I get all of that. To me, it just felt like, I don't know, even with it being the first print, maybe if it was a perfect grade or near perfect, like a 9.6, I could maybe see that. But yeah, I don't know. That was basically one that kind of was just surprised a lot of people. Another one that was kind of, a big surprise, and of course, we're talking about Pokemon, so why not talk about it in the games too, is the Pokemon Red. And that one was a perfect grade, so 9.8 A++. It was not the first print. It was the second print. But still, it's a perfect grade, which is always going to carry a premium. That ended at 84,000.
Ooh.
So whether or not that's going to be a new price point, or is it just, temporary because no other have really surfaced, we don't know. But as it stands right now, it's looking like the person who got the Pokemon Red in that trade with the World Championship card actually got the better deal. But it's too early to say for sure. It's interesting. People were saying that was a terrible trade, but now it's not looking that way. So
I mean I think it goes down to so many variables. Like if we go to cards, it always pisses me off that Charizard is worth more than the Pikas, or the Trophy Con, or anything from like 98 to 2002. Like it irritates my soul that Charizard's still worth more than all of those cards I just mentioned. And Charizard was a set card, and there's an estimated of 10,000 being printed. So it's like, I mean, I think there's a point, and I've always told you this, where I feel like Pokemon is like the most like I own a CIB first print of the first three, and they look good, and I bought them a little bit over a year ago, and I think I spent just under 2,000 for them, and I knew at the time I was already getting a good deal, and I remember you and I talked about it, and I told you that Pokemon is just going to be king no matter what, because there's always a market for it. Either a Pokemon collector is going to buy it, a
yeah,
Nintendo
but here's my
collector.
thing: is the person that bought this game buying off of the hype of the card game? Because
And
that's the sense I have. Like, it's the same block, right? The cards were sold first in line, but literally it's the same block, and you're riding the wave of cards now going for much higher than they used to. Could it just be people looking at that and saying, "Oh my gosh, now I have to buy the game because look at the cards, or
No,
is it something else?
I think people are just tired of collecting cards, and I think people are looking to diversify into something in the same category in terms of like subject, but it's a different it's a different item, and I think like I went there I hopped over to video games because Pokemon like is really what got me into a lot of things, and I bought the CIBs, and and even I went there. So I feel like, and the thing is like it sucks because like I want to get other things, but I'm priced out just in my current position of a lot of things that I want. Like I hate like it's funny, you and I talk about it all the time. Like I personally don't like the Wada the Wada box. I don't like it, and I think it's funny because like I told you, like I'm cool with buying a 5.0 sealed or a 7.0 sealed as long as the front looks clean. I will own it because I'm going to display this in my office and have them up there and blah blah blah. And the thing is, like, even a year ago, a sealed Pokemon, I remember this guy wanted 50 grand for, I think they were all 8.0s and 8.5s, for a master set of blue, yellow, and red, and I don't even think I think one was first print and the rest weren't. And he wanted like almost 50 grand for the set, and I was just like, Jesus, you know what I mean? And then raw. I don't even think raw sealed exists because people who are buying it know, so they're just gonna get it graded just A to preserve it, and B because it's gonna confirm a premium.
I
And
have noticed something interesting. The times where raw sealed exists, the seller is basically charging like it is a perfect grade. And so those end up sitting because no one actually thinks that it's going to be a perfect grade, so they're not going to take that risk. That's the only time I've seen seals. And other than that, you're right. People are smart enough to grade it themselves. They're not going to bother,
yeah,
um, underselling if they can make more by grading it. So
I feel like basically they have it in their possession and they fish it out asking for a perfect grade price, and they're like, all right, I'm not getting this, and then they just get it graded.
And I
Because
think that just gets more and more obvious when people see these figures. Because if I'm someone that owns this game and I find out that one just sold for 84,000, am I gonna sell mine ungraded? Probably not. It's kind of like what happened with the Goku. Once it became more and more commonplace to grade and sell graded, and seeing the difference in price, a lot of people were looking at their card and saying, "Wait, mine looks pretty clean. Why should I sell for this much when I can send it in to get it graded and then sell it?" And then you kind of have that effect where, the raws become much harder to find because no one wants to let go anymore, and the grade ones are the ones that start, charging the premium, becoming more common. And I think in games, especially with games like this or like the Mario, why would I sell ungraded? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And that kind of, causes this cycle to continue and become more and more, of the same thing. So I think this is probably going to create like a new demand for owners out there to grade games, because you see these prices and you think, well, why can't I get that price? So yeah, I think the effects on this are going to be really interesting to watch. To me, I don't know, man. I'm not that bullish on this game just because there were so many produced, but
but there's so many
sometimes
open though.
I know, I know.
And that's kind of where like like
But this is
personally.
this is double digit millions. It's not even single digit millions like some of the earlier SNES, NES games. Like, this is double digit millions. Like, it's
eh, eh, eh,
it's scary.
but the thing is, they had to make a third and a fourth and a fifth print run, because the game was just selling so well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the thing is, unlike cards, unlike sealed product, like booster packs, like people are opening these things to play. And the thing is, like you have to also remember that
Well, it's the
I
same
would.
with cards, right? You're just not opening to play necessarily. You might be opening to trade or put in your binder, but you're still
Right,
opening packs or opening boxes for the same reason, aren't you?
to a degree, but some people just like collecting like sealed product too. Like
The one thing I'll say though is that original first edition, because that's what's kind of comparable to Pokemon Red, a lot less was produced. A lot less. So, in terms of scale, they're not, they're not nearly as rare, right? First edition, from what I've heard, is 10,000 to 100,000 boxes, something like that. So,
It's a big range.
but still, it's still nowhere near multi-million, right? Like the factor is so much, different. I don't know. It just, to me, is it'll be interesting to see how many more of these come up, because I do think people that own this sealed are probably going to be a lot more aggressive to grade it and maybe sell it. So if more and more of these come to market and you start seeing, a lot more of this
I,
available,
I,
it could change the views of how people are trying to speculate of the scarcity of this. Granted, this was a perfect grade, and perfect grades, no matter what, will always have its own trajectory. But still, I don't know. I think it's really hard to say for sure, but I know for sure that it's a lot less first edition than this.
I mean, I just think that the demand is just there, because you can't. The one thing about video games is that I've never heard of a fake. I've only heard of reseals, and while there's been a couple questionable things by both VGA and WADA when it comes to resealed and how they examine certain things, I feel like when it comes to video games, I would personally own high grade sealed Pokemon, and if I was in that unlimited capital position, maybe I would be willing to spend, like me personally, for a first edition sealed. If money wasn't an issue, obviously I'd pay whatever the asking price is. But logistically speaking, I would probably feel comfortable spending maybe a quarter mil, maybe, for a first edition trio set. But I feel like that. I feel like if a first edition trio set were to ever surface, and they're all perfect grade, I wouldn't be I wouldn't be shocked if if it went over six figures. And that bothers me, because I don't think it should go over six figures, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, you and I had this conversation, like if you could own anything, or if you could own one of the three, and only one of the three, a first edition booster, a first edition Charizard, that's PSA 10, or a trio set of first print perfect grades, I would take the video games all day, any day of the week, because I can still find a PSA 10 Charizard for sale every now and then. I've never seen, maybe people have, but I have never seen any first edition 9.8 A++ seal surface. And any of the trio, yellow, blue, or red. I've never seen it.
No, I don't think one's surfaced yet. But why? So here's my question for you. I can understand your logic for not taking the Charizard, but what about the box? Boxes don't come up that often.
They can be faked.
Yeah. So your fear of fake makes you look at something else. Interesting. I wonder if there's more people like that because of the fear you're choosing something else, not necessarily because you want it more. But what if it was authentic? Let's say it was authentic. Let's take that out of the equation. Would you still go towards the games?
Yes.
Interesting.
The reason why is because since the demand of hype for the cards, more first edition boxes have surfaced. I believe a grand total of 18 publicly have surfaced since January of this year.
Okay, fair enough, but the games could suffer the same thing.
But they haven't, though. That's the thing, though. Right now, we're in a gaming boom. I would argue that the last 6 months has been a huge gaming boom. None have surfaced.
You could probably say a collectible boom in general, but sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's my thought, though. I mean, it takes time for people to find copies, grade copies, and actually sell copies. But I don't know. I think it's too early to know for sure whether or not you're going to see more copies or not see more copies of games, just because we haven't seen any yet. I don't know. The millions part is what scares me about the games. But in terms of, the fear for sealed fake, I definitely could see that too. Yeah.
It,
So
it's just a variable that nobody wants to deal with because
yeah, exactly.
there are people who want to have a sealed booster box and they want the sealed booster box on display, and with the fake Neo Genesis box that so when Pokerev got that fake Genesis box, he actually goes into detail about how many hands it traded, and that box was sealed for over 6 years, and they were able to trace back 8 to 9 buyers, I believe, and they were able to go back and like a while, like they were able to go back through the buyer's history and all the hands it swapped in. So that box was sealed for 6 years, and you have to. I can't imagine how it would feel to know that I sold you a first edition booster box, right? I sold you, Mike, a first edition booster box, and 5 years from now, it comes back that you ended up selling it to somebody else, and they sent it something, and then they finally opened it, and it comes out to be fake, and now we go through this chain backwards, where you feel like I sold you a fake booster. You know what I mean? Like and for all I know, I bought it off of Heritage. I bought it off of eBay. I bought it at a convention, at an expo. I bought it from Scott or Gary. Like, there comes a point where like it's just a variable that I personally do take into consideration and would hate to be involved with. And the fact that 3 fake first edition boosters have surfaced in a 30-day period out of the 18 boosters that have sold in the last year, I personally take that into consideration. But again, my whole principle is that I have never seen a 9.8 A plus, even A plus seal of the trio surface first print. I haven't seen it. For all we know, that none exists. You know what I mean? And I have a feeling that sometimes some of these prices sound outrageous, but I think the buyers know something we don't. Like, they do know how many exist, or they have a strong data points to let them know how many exist, or if this is the only one of its kind.
Well, the part that sucks about WADA specifically is that they don't have public pop reports. So at least for now, it's mostly speculation, or maybe you get lucky and you ask somebody at WADA and they tell you the information. But it's not yet like super public and easy to access like PSA is. So I don't know if they actually know how many are out there, how many have been graded, what grades they've been they've been given, stuff like that. But to me, it's just, I don't know, man. It's that triangle is really hard to pick. They all have their pros and cons, I think. And speaking of the trio, the yellow version also was on this block, and that was a 9.8 A plus.
Was it first print?
Yes, this one was first print. It looks like.
Ooh.
But the interesting thing is that for this particular game, it also sold for a lot, 78,000 to be specific. So less than red, but not that much less than red than kind of what a lot of people were expecting. So it was also kind of a surprise, just given how much more common yellow is than the red. So I don't know. It's just, Pokemon just overtaking games at this point, it feels like. Because, for the Game Boy. Yeah, I know. But for the Game Boy, Mario tends to be the one that most people think about because it's, he's essentially the face of Nintendo. And his game was actually in this block too, believe it or not, and a perfect grade of 9.88++, and that was 43,000. So within the Game Boy console, Mario undersold, which was also a shocker, right? Because when you think about, whatever console you want, normally Mario is what comes to mind as going to be the one that's most chased, most popular, most expensive, right? Just like we saw with Nintendo's NES original system. But for the Game Boy, Pokemon took over, and not just red, yellow too. So it's kind of crazy to just see how strong Pokemon is and how far its reaches across multiple collectibles, right? Now even into video games. And I think for a lot of traditional video game collectors that aren't as familiar with this huge, surge in popularity for Pokemon, they were shocked, right? Like, how is it possible that Mario wasn't the most expensive game in this auction for that console. So yeah, it's really interesting to see how much Pokemon is, taking over other collectibles besides just cards. So
If I'm not mistaken, I think Tetris was the best selling GBA game of all time, and um,
I think so. Yeah, you mean
uh,
Game Boy? GBA is advanced.
yeah, sorry, yeah, Game Boy. So right now, I think it's interesting because they combine it. Tetris is number one at 35 million copies sold.
Yeah, I wish they broke it down by color because when you bunch together red, green, and blue, green is not even in the U.S. But when you bunch it together, it kind of makes it feel a little bit more misleading because you don't see like Mario 2, Mario 3 being combined. They're
Well,
separately
well,
listed. So
but see, I see both sides because technically they're the same game. All three are the same game. They're just variations of the game. So that's why I see why they group it together because it is the same game. The only difference is in the game is
yeah,
the cover
okay,
art.
I'll give you that. Yeah,
So in order, this is crazy. So number one is Tetris at 35 million. Number two is Pokemon Red, Green, Blue, at 31 million. Pokemon Gold, Silver at number three, with 23 million. Super Mario Land.
see, but that's not even the original Game Boy. That's color. Technically, Mario would have been third
Right,
for the original Game Boy.
Mario would have been third. Yellow alone sold 14 million,
Yeah,
14.6 million, and that was five. And then six was Super Mario Land 2, the 6 golden coins.
yeah.
And then this again goes into color, but then Crystal sold 6.3 million. So this is an interesting part. Crystal, from what I understand, only has I believe 2 runs, because I believe they scaled. From what I understand, they looked at Pokemon Red and Blue in the U.S. and they saw how much it sold. And when they made Yellow, they kind of made Yellow blind, and they just printed to demand, which sold to 14.6 million. So there was a clear drop off of almost 40%, or sorry, over almost 50% from the original Red and Blue, because again they didn't really like. The game is different. Yellow is different because you can get all 3 starters. You have Pikachu following you. It is a little different. Like Yellow is a different game. But again, it didn't change the game too much, so I can see why it didn't sell as well. So I think with Crystal, because you can see the drop off. Gold and Silver sold 23 million, and Crystal sold 6.3 million. So,
Yes, it was also towards the tail end of the life cycle of that console because Advance had come up as well. So technically, the later releases for consoles also have lower print runs because the focus is shifting towards the new console. So that's probably another reason as well.
that is true. You know what's funny? Pokemon Pinball is
Yeah, that was kind of out of nowhere. I didn't expect that to be so high.
yeah, it's number 9, and then Dr. Mario is number 8 at 5 million. That's pretty funny. And then Wario Land, which Super Mario Land 3, which is kind of cool. There are some fun things on here that I'm surprised that they fall so low. But I think it's funny that I know there was hundreds and hundreds of Game Boy games. I know there's a bunch of Game Boy games, and only 53 games broke the million sell mark, and being number 53 was Game and Watch, and then from there it's like Donkey Kong and like Tetris 2 and Yu-Gi-Oh and DuckTales, the Final Fantasy Legends, Link's Awakening, all of the main, like franchise games. But so it makes me wonder like how many games like this is where scarcity comes in, because I know people collect like just rare and obscure games, because I see it all the time on like the Facebook group and on Discord. People just post random games. I'm like, I have no clue what this game is, and people are like all commenting like, oh, it's a great buy, great pickup, super rare, and I'm just like, I've never heard of this game.
There are a lot of those titles out there, like super esoteric, super like just unknown, and you're just like, okay.
And I feel like I almost hate saying this, I think I made the comment once, and people like jumped up my throat, and I'm like, I feel like you guys are just collecting cover art at this point. You guys aren't even collecting the game, because if the game is so hard to find and so scarce, that means the game was probably really shitty.
Yeah.
But the cover art was really cool, cause there are some cover arts on some of the games that are fucking, they're great, they're phenomenal, but there's some. You know what surprised me on the NES one is, I wonder where Contra falls in, cause Contra to me personally is super up there on that on the Nintendo, like just Contra and Metroid for me were more of the obscure ones that I really like. But Contra to me was like revolutionizing. Like,
Yeah, I don't know where it ranks, but definitely it's, at least it has a huge following for sure. I don't know if sales data was
yeah,
good for it, but it definitely has a huge following.
yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's up there. I mean, it sounds like Heritage just did a lot this weekend. I will still stand by my statement when it comes to Pokemon. If you can get a trio of even just 9.6 first print A plus, I feel like that to me supersedes damn near anything in the card game, like to me. So
All right. I mean, yeah, it's tough either way. Um, but yeah, this was a really fun conversation. I actually enjoyed going through this. Really, really interesting to see the new sales data for a lot of this stuff and what the future holds, especially given some of the things that have happened privately. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
no, I think we covered everything. We kind of went on a little bit of a tangent, but no. I think it was a good discussion. I actually look forward to seeing the next Heritage block and seeing some
Yeah,
some
same here.
interesting things. But yeah,
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for your time, Zeke, as always, and we'll talk to you guys next time.
have a good one, guys.